Hey guys, Mr. Kyle, Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump right into it. So today is one step inequalities. We want to solve each inequality and graph its solution. So it's going to be really similar to what we did last time, and if you weren't around for last time, I've been doing a series on Algebra 1 worksheets, and so at the end of this video you'll see a link to all of those worksheets, or you can just go to the channel and look for the playlist there. It's like titled something like Algebra 1 Kuta worksheets or something like that. But it's a whole thing on like a bunch of Algebra 1 topics. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how to solve these last time, but what you do is you do exactly what you normally do when you solve an equation, which is, have you heard of Pemdas? I'm sure you probably have, right? So Pemdas stands for Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. It also stands for parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, and sometimes it's called the order of operations. So, quick little recap, but if we're trying to solve, you're like, wait, what does PEMDAS have to do with this? If you're trying to solve something, you do the opposite of PEMDAS. PEMDAS is when you're trying to simplify. If we're trying to solve something, we start with S, A, D, M, E, P. PEMDAS spelled backwards. So all the letters still stand for the same things: subtraction, addition, division, multiplication, exponents, and then parentheses, but in reverse order. So, like for number 1, we write it off to the side over here, negative 12, x minus 7. Okay, so I want to add or subtract. You can kind of do either one at the same time. Well, either one. You don't have to start with subtraction and then go to addition necessarily, because they're kind of like the same thing almost. So we just want to say, like, okay, is there something I can add or subtract on both sides? Well, in order to figure out if you can do that, you want to do what's called identify the operation. So you want to say, like, okay, what's going on? X minus 7, what's happening? Well, it's x, and it's minusing 7. So then once you've identified, hey, we're minusing 7, then you say, okay, well, what's the opposite of minusing 7? Well, the opposite of minus is plus, right? So we want to plus 7 on both sides. When you're solving, you're doing stuff to both sides of the equation, and so then that goes away. Negative 12 plus 7. So I have a whole thing on this as well. There's a whole video on this, same series of videos, and it's on how to add and subtract negative numbers and stuff like that. So in order to do this, what I actually want to do is, since it's negative 12 plus 7, it's sort of like the opposite of 12 minus 7. 12 minus 7 is 5. So if 12 minus 7 is 5, then negative 12 plus 7, which is the opposite of positive 12 minus 7, then this would be negative 5. Since 12 minus 7 is 5, and I want the opposite of that. Okay. So anytime the signs are different, you're going to subtract. You just subtract the big number minus the little number, and then you see, does the number need to be negative? And you can see if it needs to be negative either by saying, did I have to switch the signs? Or by looking at the bigger number, ignoring the signs, looking at the bigger number, and then looking at the sign of the bigger number. And then that would be the sign of the answer. So you can do it either way. And again, there's a whole video on that, so go check that out. I don't have the link in the description usually, so you just go to the end of the video and the link will pop up in one of the boxes down around the video. Okay. So negative 7 plus 7, that just crosses out, and then I have x here. Now this is kind of weird though, because x is on the wrong side. I want the x on the left-hand side. In an equation, it doesn't really matter, because like if 2 equals x, then x equals 2. It's like, no duh. But here, it's a little weird, because it says negative 5 is greater than x. Well, does that mean that x is supposed to be greater than negative 5? No. What we have to do is we have to flip it around. Well, if you flip it around, you have to flip the sign around as well. So you have to be careful. If we flip the whole thing around, or if we read it backwards, if we read it forwards, right, from left to right, if I read it, it would say negative 5 greater than x. If I read it from right to left, then it would read x is less than negative 5. So I want to write it how I would read it from right to left. X is less than negative 5. So this is the same thing as this. These two right here are the same thing as this. All right, same thing. I just wrote it backwards. So I had to flip the sign, and I flipped the x in the -5. Okay, so solve each inequality. That was the first part. All right, step 1, done. All right, so this is step 1. Solve the inequality. And then graph its solution. So the graphing part is not going to be as difficult. And like I said, the previous video talks about how we actually graph these. But here's how you do it, just in case you didn't see that video. X is less than -5 if it doesn't have the or equal to bar thing underneath the inequality. So underneath the less than or greater than, if it does not have the bar, then you put an open circle. Okay, so actually let me do this. Why is it not doing the thing? There we go. So if it's this or this, then I do an open circle. If it's this, come on, this or this, then I do a closed circle. Okay, and then the other thing too is that if you draw an arrow right there, it points to the left, mostly. It points to the left, which means my arrow is going to point left. Less than points left, and greater than points right. So if you can draw an arrow, if you can put a line that touches your inequality and it makes an arrow, then the arrow points in the direction you need to shade. So we start at -5, and it's -2, then -3, -4, -5 is right here. Put an open circle, and then I shade to the left. Whew. That was a crazy number 1. Let's hope number 2 is not as crazy. It doesn't look like it's going to be. The r is already on the left side, which is the side it's supposed to be on. -1 plus r greater than or equal to 4. Okay, so we identify the operation. It's plus, so we'd have to minus the opposite of the number. Well, if I minus a -1, that's the same thing as adding 1. Okay, let me do that again. Since I have a plus here, I identify that it's plus. Step 1. Step 2, I do the opposite of that operation. So the opposite of plus is minus, but the number I need to minus is a -1. Okay, so this is a little tricky. All right, number 2 is also a little tricky. We're kind of starting off a little rocky here. If it's plus in between the -1 and the r, I do want to subtract, or it's the opposite of plus, but I want to minus a -1 because I want to minus the opposite of this number. Well, I'm going to have to subtract a -1, which is the same thing as plusing 1. So I want a +1 on both sides. Okay, -1 plus 1 goes away, and then r is greater than or equal to 5. Oh, look at that. We got 5 again. And look, watch this. Boom, boom, boom. Right arrow. See, it makes an arrow. Arrow pointing to the right. So 5. And this has the or equal to bar. So I put a closed circle, and then I go to the right. All right, cool. So that was number 1 and number 2. Let's hope they get easier and not harder, right? Ooh, all right. It does look like they get maybe a little bit easier. Number 3 doesn't look terrible. Let's see here. So we want to identify the operation minus. What's the opposite of minus? Plus. So I plus 6 on both sides. Okay. N is less than or equal to, and then -14 plus 6. I'm going to be subtracting because the signs are opposites. So I'm going to subtract 14 minus 6. That would be 8, but I need it to be -8 because I had to switch the signs in order to subtract. And or I take the sign of the bigger number. 14 is bigger than 6, so the sign of 14 is negative. The sign of the answer is going to be negative. Okay. N is less than or equal to -8. Here's -8. Less than or equal to, so closed circle. Arrow points to the left. All right. We have b minus 7. b minus 7 less than -12. Opposite of minus 7 is plusing 7. Plusing 7 on both sides here. B less than -5. How did I know that so fast? Oh, crazy. Because -12 plus 7 is actually what we just did right here. We just did that. -12 plus 7 is -5. All right, B is less than -5. Here's -5. Less than goes left. Less than left. Left less than. Or you can draw a little arrow thing. And there we go. All right. And as always, what I do is, kind of explain what I'm doing the first couple up until we get to, start to get into it, and then as long as nothing new comes up, I'm going to explain what I'm doing less and less and just kind of provide more examples here. So if you want to, go ahead and try to work some of these out on your own, and you can pause the video at any point and work out some of the ones ahead of me. See if you get the right answer because, unpause the video and see what I put for the answer. Or you can look this up. You won't be able to see the URL because it's cut off. But what you can do is you can Google the title. Just Google Infinite Algebra 1 one-step equalities and it'll come right up. And then you can look at the answers yourself. Okay, so I added 17 on both sides here because it's the opposite of minusing 17. A is going to be greater than positive 1. Negative 16 plus 17 is actually the same thing as 17 minus 16, which is 1. So A is greater than 1. Greater than 1. Right there. Greater than R for right. And there we go. Okay, 15 plus x less than or equal to 0. Well, the opposite of plus is minus, so I want to minus a positive 15. I want to minus a positive 15. X is less than or equal to 0 minus 15 is going to be, well, negative 15. So I'm going to do negative 15. And they don't have a negative 15, but in between negative 14 and negative 16 is where I imagine that is. So it's right there. And then the arrow points to the left. A la izquierda. Está aquí. And there we go. All right, cool. And again, you can always pause it and move ahead, see if you get the right answer. Also, if you feel like you've got this, you can also move down and just look for harder problems. Just fast forward a little bit in the video, look for something that looks difficult, and then try that out. See if you get it. If you don't, then just, unpause the video where it's at, and see if you get the right answer that way. So I subtracted 3 on both sides. Negative 9 minus 3 is actually adding. When the signs are the same, you add, because think about it, the opposite of negative 9 minus 3 is positive 9 plus 3. That would be the opposite. And you can take the opposite of the numbers to make it easier. Don't forget that you need to add the opposite sign when you're done. So positive 9 plus 3 is 12, which means that negative 9 minus 3 is negative 12. If the signs are the same, you add the numbers. Ignore the signs for a second, just add the numbers. And then if both numbers are negative, your answer is negative. If both numbers are positive, your answer is positive. Okay, so V is going to be, not equal to, less than or equal to negative 12. All right, and that would go to the left, and it's a closed circle. Negative 12 is right here. And I shade this way. All right, so then I have 8 greater than or equal to n minus 6. What's the opposite of minusing 6? Adding 6. Boom, 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 boom. 8 plus 6 is 14. And, it's flipped around. That didn't happen not since back at number 1. So we're going to flip it around. Remember, if you flip the numbers, the letter in the number that is, you want to also flip the sign. Don't forget to flip the sign when you move it around. Or you can try to read it backwards. If you read it backwards here, it'd be n less than or equal to 14. So that's how I write it. All right, and then that would go to the left. Don't forget when you're solving these to get the letter on the left side. Doesn't really matter if it's an equation. Super, super matters if it's an inequality. So then we shade this way. And there we go. All right, we're almost done with the first page here. That means we're halfway there. All right, negative 3, x greater than 3. This time I'm multiplying, so the opposite of multiply is divide. Even though it's a negative 3, I'm not subtracting or adding. I'm actually multiplying. When you have a number and a letter right next to each other with no sign in between, then the sign is multiply. They just don't put a sign. So, opposite of multiplying is dividing. We divide by the exact same number, not positive 3. Opposite of negative 3 is positive 3, but we're not trying to do the opposite of minusing or plusing. We're trying to do the opposite of timesing. So you want to keep the sign. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. So it would just be 1x or just x. They cancel. Oh, hold on. This is an inequality. There's one thing that's different about inequalities and equations. When you solve an inequality and an equation, they're similar because you can, add, subtract, multiply, divide, do anything you want to both sides of the equation or inequality, and that's fine. Except when you multiply or divide by a negative number, and we just did that. When that happens, you got to make sure you flip the sign. So greater than now becomes less than. We flip the sign because we divided by a negative 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. All right? So the only thing that's different about solving an inequality versus an equation is that when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to remember to flip that sign. Don't let the little things trip you up. All right, so that's at negative 1, and we go left. We go left. All right, next, n over 3 greater than 3. Okay, we're dividing. N over 3, it's a fraction, but fractions are division. So if we're dividing, what's the opposite of that? Well, opposite of dividing is, well, timesing. So we want to times by 3 on both sides. Notice I'm timesing by a positive number here. I'm timesing by a positive, so I don't need to flip the sign. I only need to flip it if I times or divide by a negative number. 3 times 3 is 9. Here's 9. Greater than points to the right. A la derecha. Esta aquí es la respuesta. So then we go to the next one. Change to yellow here. And we have the k over 4 thing. Now there is a negative on the other side, but that's okay. Remember, it's if you multiply or divide by both sides a negative or positive or negative number. So I am multiplying a negative 4 by 4, but I'm multiplying both sides of the equation by positive 4. Therefore, I do not need to flip the sign. You only flip the sign less than or greater than or less than. You only flip it if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative. Both sides by a negative. So k less than negative 16. Here's negative 16. Open circle. And less than shades left. All right, negative 9x greater than or equal to negative 90. This time we are dividing by a negative because I want to divide by negative 9 to get the negative 9s to cancel. So I flip the sign. Negative 90 divided by negative 9. Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 90 divided by 9 is 10. Or you can divide the numbers first. 90 divided by 9 is 10, and then figure out the sign of the answer. You can actually do it either way. Doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you do both steps. So we have 10. It's right here. And then we want to go to the left. All right. So number 13. And since we haven't really hit anything new yet, I'm going to just go ahead and start solving these the same way I was, but just a little bit faster maybe. So again, if you feel like you've gotten the hang of this, then you can move forward in the video. But if you feel like you still need more practice, then if you get stuck on one of these, just go back to one of the ones that I did and I really explained, and figure out what I was doing here, because I'm not doing anything new. If I do something new, I'll stop and I'll explain what I'm doing here. But all of this is all stuff that we've already done earlier in this video right now. Alright, so this is negative 25, and then negative 25 is right here, and we go to the right. Okay. And by the way, if you haven't gotten my awesome free guide, it's called the 5 Math Mistakes Everyone Makes and How to Avoid Them. It is for free on my website, myersmathematics.com, spelled exactly like how it's spelled in, somebody was trying to call me. It's spelled exactly how it's spelled on my channel here. So myersmathematics.com, and then you can go grab that awesome free guide. It's called the 5 Math Mistakes Everyone Makes and How to Avoid Them. Just a little like PDF type thing. And it's just sort of one of those things you just kind of read through and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. And then it kind of just, you're just like, oh, okay, so like if I'm getting the wrong answer, it's because of this. You can kind of figure it out from there. This one's a little tricky. Negative 156 divided by 13. Dividing by 13s are hard. But what we can do is we've got a little bit of space right here. I know the answer is going to be positive, so I can just focus on the numbers here. Top number always goes in the box. And I know 13 goes into 15 exactly once, so that might help me a little bit here. That would be 13. Subtract, I'd get 2, 26. Oh, 13 goes into 26 2 times. Evenly, so it's going to be 12. Okay? If you ever have trouble, you can always divide off to the side, unless you can use a calculator. If you can use a calculator, obviously do that. But if you can't, some long division might help. Okay? Because I didn't have that memorized. To be honest, I don't have my 13s memorized. So if you do, then you are awesome. You are awesome. Let me know how awesome you are in the comments below. Here's 12. And we want to go greater than 12. So there we go. There's the answer. 32. Greater than or equal to negative 16. Divide by negative 16 on both sides. We have to flip the sign. So less than or equal to. That's going to be a negative 2. But the p's on the wrong side again, so I have to flip that. I have to flip it back, basically. I have to flip it back. Okay, so I had to flip it twice, actually. You have to flip the sign if you multiply or divide by a negative, which we did. But since p was on the wrong side, we had to flip it again. And when we flip what's on the left and what's on the right, you have to also flip the sign so that you get your answer here. So p greater than or equal to negative 2. So close circle going to the right. All right, there we go. So then we have the next one here. Negative 8. And then v minus 3. Add 3, add 3. And that's negative 5. Greater than v. So v is less than negative 5. Less than negative 5. Just like that. 11 less than or equal to 5 plus x. Subtract 5 on both sides. X and right there, and that would be 6, and then I need to flip it around again. So greater than or equal to positive 6. Positive 6 and greater. Okay. And let's see, 25 in plus 13. Opposite of plus 13 is minus 13. Minus minus in and 12, and I need to flip it again. And they're giving us a lot of these ones that we need to flip. You gotta have the letter on the left-hand side. You can also read it backwards, like I was saying earlier. Like you can read it backwards and do it that way too, but if you're just starting out with this stuff, or if you haven't already had like a lot of practice, like if you haven't already done a worksheet like this before, I probably wouldn't try to do that on a test or a quiz if you have one tomorrow coming up. I would maybe get some more practice with it first, and then once you feel really comfortable just writing it backwards, like, oh, just reading it like, reading it from here in less than or equal to 12 and doing it that way. Once you feel more comfortable with that, then go for it. But on a test or a quiz, unless you get a good amount of practice, I would not try it. Right? Just to rush and save time, not worth it. If you find a faster method, that's fine, but never try to do a math problem fast. It's always inviting trouble. Do I know what that is? Yeah, 14. Let's see. So this is going to be positive 14. Oh, and I divided by a negative. And then I need to flip it again. So a is greater than 14. Greater than 14. And there we go. All right, we're almost done, actually. We've got 4 more. Wow, look at that. Okay, what colors have I not done? I haven't done this color yet. Let's do this color. So negative 3. We want to add 4 to both sides. Let me rewrite it real quick. Add 4, add 4. X and 1, and then we want to flip it. So x less than or equal to 1. I didn't flip it. For whatever reason, I can't do Control Z on here. X is greater than or equal to 1. Probably would have been better if I wrote it right below it. I got it a little confused there because I didn't write it right below, so I would always recommend doing that actually. So let me go back and write it underneath. I didn't really leave myself enough space, so I was like, oh, I'll just write it off to the side, but I almost messed up. So it's better if you try to write it underneath. If you need another sheet of paper for this, go ahead and just do it if you need the extra space. So x greater than or equal to 1. Here's 1. Greater than goes this way. All right. Third to last one here. Times by 3 on both sides. The 3's cancel. R greater than 18. Here's 18. Oh, not closed circle. Almost in a closed circle. Greater than 18. And last two. 12n greater than or equal to 84. Divide by 12, divide by 12. Ooh, which one was that? Was that 7? Yeah, that was 7. So n greater than or equal to 7. There's 7. And sometimes I'm off on my mental math. I actually am not really good at mental math. Surprisingly, I guess. I don't know. So if I get one of these wrong, sometimes I won't even recognize if I got them wrong. So let me know if I got one of them wrong in the comments. I'll go back and fix it later. All right, so then that goes away there, and I have b, and then this is subtracting, so that's negative 12, because the sign of the bigger number, right? And then I have to flip it around, so b is less than negative 12. Flip the sign, and so then 12's right here, and less than goes this way. And that is it. That's everything on the worksheet. Here's the answers, in case you didn't already look them up. And again, if I mess something up, let me know. Oh, sorry, it was auto-scrolling. Let's do this. Aha. Okay, so here's the answers. And while that's on auto-scroll there, just let me know if any of this was helpful in the comments below. Give me a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, if you haven't gotten that awesome free guide, it's just one click away. You just go to myersmathematics.com and you can go grab that thing. And let me know if that was helpful for you in one of the videos or in an email. Alright guys, we'll take it easy, and I'll see you in another episode of this series on Algebra 1 Kuta worksheets.